Special effects and visual effects for Harry Potter 5, The Order of the Phoenix. How's it stacking up? Here we go.
Welcome back to AsArt with Nick and John. We post 3 videos a week. Hit the subscribe button to stay updated. You can find all of our links at asart.space. John, what did you think of the Dementors?
So, admittedly, Nick and I talked a little bit before this one about a few of the effects, so we know a little bit. But overall, I think we were both getting the vibe that we felt like it was a lot more CG than in the previous films, or at least the CG felt a lot more noticeable.
Yes.
And before we even go into specific shots, do you want to talk about why you think that was the case, or do you have any theories on why that was?
You know, it could have been the director. I think maybe like the Dementors. I think the reason why they worked so well in the third film was how dark it was too. You know what I mean? Like visually with the lighting and stuff. I think the yellow lighting in the hallway for that shot in particular, they just didn't help it because you can just see the 3D, texture and stuff on the. It just did not look good.
Yeah. So the interesting, we'll go back to CG as overall and theories why they did so much. But yeah, in those particular scenes, so in the beginning they have the nephew and Harry in the tunnel, and for the most part, it kind of doesn't hold up quite as well. There's certain shots that are wide shots where the Dementors are moving around a lot, where it makes sense why they would use CG, because you couldn't get any type of puppet unless you did a cloud tank. You couldn't get them to move around and animate that same way, and a cloud tank probably wouldn't hold up as well in 2000 whatever when this was made versus Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? So and if you guys are curious about cloud tanks, head over to Johnny How To, my other channel, actually talk about doing cloud tank footage. We do some ghosts and stuff, so that's kind of funny. I think that's live or going to be posted, so if you're curious what the heck I'm talking about, you can look at that. But the Dementors, you're right. I think in the other movies they were in really dark. But what I didn't get is there's certain shots where it's really close up on the Dementor and Harry, and they could have used real things, for that. They could use real robes, and I guess the hands would have been hard. But like in the other movie, when the Dementor was going by the train, it was just the hand that was CG, but everything else was kind of silhouetted and real. Do you think they could have gotten away with using some real practical effects on those?
Maybe. It's tough because they probably had a guy in a 3D a green screen suit, kind of like holding and choking. You know what I mean? Like that's probably what they had to do, but I don't know. I just thought it looked really cheesy.
I mean, it didn't look bad. I mean, so all these effects we're going to talk about, if we didn't think the CG was great, like for instance, some of the horse type creatures looked CG-ish, but you could see the ribs and the skin and the muscles going over the ribs. I mean, so very, very, very complex effects they're doing. We're talking about layers and layers and layers and all kinds of people to get the stuff done. But I can't say they held up as well as the other movies.
Though, it could have been the movement of the Dementors too, though. Because in the first one, they kind of felt like they moved like humans a little bit more, because they were kind of like the ring wraiths kind of thing.
Yeah, where they felt a lot more ring wraithish.
They had like a hoodish, they had like a hood over their head, more covered in shadow, where you really didn't see their face and stuff too much. So maybe by going for the full mummy design, you know what I mean, where it's just like it looks like they're wrapped in something, and since they don't have eyes and a nose and stuff, you don't really have something to connect with to make it feel like it's a human, because everything needs to kind of resemble us in some way for us to kind of make a connection to it. I feel like
but then the danger of that too is that if they look too much like us, then we start getting the uncanny valley, and we start to pick out what doesn't look right.
If they would have went with maybe like Pirates of the Caribbean, where they're like skeletons, kind of, where we can tell like they were once human, or they're because they have human hands, like their hands are human hands, but their face. But anyways, you go down the rabbit hole with this. The next shot I want to talk about is when the text appears on his hand.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that was a makeup effect, and then they just did a little reveal with it, where they probably comped the skin back on, and then because there's a part where he like stretches his hands and it like stretched with it and everything. I'm like, it would have been so much easier if they just did it practical, and then they cover it and remove it.
I mean, to put the skin with the same texture and stuff back on top might be hard. That might be just as hard. I'm not, because skin is pretty hard, right? I mean, skin's always been a hard thing to replicate. That's why a lot of early CG characters look very rubbery and didn't look natural. So I'm not sure. I mean, that could have been something animated, or maybe they they had a rough version of the skin and they did animate with it, but all they did was comp in the words that were on the hand. I'm not sure. Like I'd have to look. True. I'd have to loop that, and then obviously we still wouldn't know for sure. But the perspective and the movement and everything matched perfectly though, right?
Oh yeah, it looked really good.
It looked really good. Yeah.
That's where all the money went. Okay, so we talked about the horses, but you know the whole thing with the horse too, because it doesn't look like a real horse. It's like a dead horse. Because like. I hate to go back to Lord of the Rings. We're such big Lord of the Rings fans. But the dead horses with the ring rays, right? They're basically a real horse. But they have like blood melting off of it. And maybe you see like a bone and stuff. Where this is just full on skeleton horse. Or anything that's just a skeleton moving just doesn't look realistic to us.
Is that what the horses are in the books? Do you remember the description of those?
I think they're just like a dead looking horse. Because the only way you can see them is if you've seen death, kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Like I said, when I was looking at them, and they didn't look. I'm not going to say convincing because I've never seen a dead horse running around, but hopefully,
that's the toughest part,
a dead horse.
Like.
Don't beat a dead horse. Part. But that being said, like I said, you can see the ribs, you can see the skin when they're breathing, it going over, you can see the breathing in and out. I mean, all the work is there, just something about it didn't quite fit, and I'd have to loop to maybe pick it out. But at a certain point, when people do a very, very, very good job at visual effects, you can't tell why it doesn't work. Maybe you can sometimes, but a lot of times it just doesn't feel quite right. And it could be anything from texture to animation to anything in between. So
it's also just something we don't see in the everyday kind of thing.
You know what I mean? Why it's in a movie and it's fun. Yeah.
But like right away, because we know it's not real, because we know things like that don't exist, they really look 3D to us, like Dobby. You know what I mean? Like even though Dobby is amazing and like with the quality they did with Dobby, but because we know Dobby's not a real thing, we know it's 3D kind of thing.
But when we get to Dobby in the later Harry Potter film, I feel like he'd look completely convincing. So
we know it's a 3D character, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Now, that being said, one other thing I want to say about this stuff, none of this ruined the movie for me.
No.
It's stuff that you can look at and nitpick, but it all serves its purpose wonderfully, and they're still wonderful movies. So I want to make clear that we're just not bashing on the movie. It's just, compared to the other installments we've watched so far, this one was a little bit more noticeable for the CG. But continue on.
What did you think of the house?
I thought that was fun. I thought that worked perfectly fine.
Yeah, they did such a good job.
So I was thinking back to was the first Harry Potter when the bricks were coming apart and it looked kind of fake. This one was a whole city or a whole building, and that looked really popping in, moving around. I thought that was really fun. I thought it totally worked. Oh yeah,
but the ear. What did you think of the ear? The shot like right after.
That's one thing that I thought was a little bit weird. I feel like certain effects. That's why I asked about the Dementors for you. Is I feel like certain effects they could have done practically. I feel like the ear was really animated, so I understand why they did it 3D. But it looked a little bit funky, where they could have maybe had like an animatronic ear. I guess you couldn't get all the wires in that. I don't know, but that looked a little bit. Did that look weird to you? Or
yeah,
no?
And I think especially too because they put hair on it.
Yeah, which is fun. I mean, it's fun that they had those details.
But like it was just the hair didn't look like real hair. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And I get it has to be in there. It's part of the story. It's in the books, and it's like how do you add it at that point? You know what I mean? Like
what year was this made? Do you know offhand? Okay. Well, I feel like maybe they jumped to CG a little bit more quickly than they in this movie than they did in the previous ones, or they're relying on it a little bit more heavily. Kind of like where in the Hobbit films and this is obviously way further down the road, but in the Hobbit films they jumped to CG a lot more than they did hybrid effects. At least it seems like that. Mm-hmm. And so maybe they were getting to a point where like we're really confident we can do this stuff in CG, but we think it's going to look just as good. Maybe this time it didn't quite, but at the same time, I can see why they use CG in a lot of shots they did, because they were having very intricate movements and things like that animatronic. We always say animatronics and special effects are the best, but sometimes when you try them, they just don't look good. So maybe for all we know, they might have tried special effects on all these and just said, okay, this is not working.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one I want to bring up was the fireworks. Because remember in the last one, I was like, I hate this leprechaun firework guy so much. And we were comparing it to the dragon, but this
and then we got
firework
a dragon.
Effect, this firework dragon effect is what I wanted for the leprechaun. You know what I mean?
So what did you think about it?
Oh, I liked it a lot. I just thought it was so fun and colorful, but
Yeah.
it looked like a firework, where the other one just looked like a 3D character, like dancing, having a good time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, the whole section of the movie where all the lights. I mean, not only are these fireworks going off, but unlike say lightsabers in early Star Wars, there's light interaction between the characters and what's going off. And obviously, they probably added in the fireworks to match the lighting later on. But yeah, the dragon looked really cool. It looked. I'd have to go back and watch Lord of the Rings and see how well that smog firework, because it really does look like a firework in Lord of the Rings, but this looks more like a magical firework.
But it had more firework filled than the leprechaun.
Yeah. And as we jumped from that leprechaun to this, I'm like, I even noted I'm like, Nick's going to talk about this firework for sure, but it was definitely a lot better. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But then again, sometimes if you guys go to like, not now because we're on quarantine, but if you go to baseball games or football games or sports events, a lot of the effects and stuff they do on the Jumbotron and stuff are very cheesy. And kind of artificial looking. So maybe they did that on purpose. Leprechaun. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, you're right, John. Maybe.
I don't know. I don't.
Okay, now to Hagrid's stepbrother, the giant.
Yeah.
What did you think of the giant?
So that's, I think, one of the hardest ones to sell, because it's he's funky, and then he's a hybrid creature, but it's real enough that he looks like a young kid, that you get to that uncanny valley for sure. Everything worked, but this is something we're still struggling with in 2020, is making absolutely perfectly realistic, replicate humans, whether they've passed away or you're trying to recreate them in a younger state. We're just not there yet. And obviously this was a lot longer back. It worked. I mean, the expressions and the performance was really good. Yeah. What was your thoughts?
The holding scene? Man, I'm going to reference the Lord of the Rings again. Oh my gosh. One thing I liked about Lord of the Rings was when Merry and Pippin were being carried by Treebeard, they actually built arms when they filmed it, when they were carrying it and stuff.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
Really, the actors can really interact, and you saw the ruffles on the trees moving when it moves and stuff like that. Like, oh, they come with their axes and their torches. But it just, when you have to interact with a giant, especially, King Kong was pretty good, right?
I was just thinking King Kong, actually. Yeah.
They did a great job with that.
But the whole movie lived and died on King Kong, right? So this is just one character in a movie full of effects. Whereas King Kong was probably one of my favorite visual effects movies, the Peter Jackson one. It's one of my very, very favorites.
It was intense. It was so intense.
Yeah, it was super intense. Really, really good visual effects. The matte paintings and the jungle and everything were great. But yeah, I mean, maybe the interaction was better. But that being said, they're like, all right, we got to get King Kong working, or our movie's not working.
And then especially that's such an iconic moment of the movies, right? Like when they're in the hands and there's like a love connection kind of thing.
Yeah. So the importance is probably placed more heavily on that. That being said, this is not something specific to Harry Potter. Anytime someone's writing on a creature or interact with the creature, a lot of times, especially if it's on a large scale, a lot of times it looks very fake. So just the motions aren't quite there.
What do you think of the Centaurs?
You know what? The Centaurs, you could tell they were CG characters, but I like them actually. I thought they were darker lighting, so maybe that helped. But I mean, all the muscularity, you could see the muscles flexing. You could see, I mean, again, even if it doesn't look absolutely perfect, it looks really, really good. And you can just tell all the work that went into them. Actually, I was thinking the Centaurs, especially in certain shots, I thought looked absolutely great. In other shots, they maybe didn't look quite as good, but overall, I really liked the Centaurs. Did you as well? Or
yeah, I think it works. I don't know. It's tough.
Do you think it worked better than some of the other CG shots? Or do you think it was about on par with some of the other CG shots?
I mean, I think it was a little better than some of the other ones. I think the lighting helped it out for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so heavy compared to the other films. It feels like, or like, I don't know, because Goblet of Fire looks so good, like with the characters and stuff.
Really, really good.
But
and so these all had the same. Was it 1 year release windows in between movies, or 2 years?
Oh, maybe 2 or 3.
2. I think it was
pretty. Yeah.
Because
it was pretty spaced. Yeah. It was pretty spaced out.
So I was just trying to think, because the first everything like they think.
You're like Winnie the Pooh. He's like.
In the first 4, everything seems so solid, except for the first one. They were still, struggling through the CG or the visual effects developments of the time period. I was just wondering, It'll be interesting to see a chart with all the visual effects shots per film and see.
I would love to see that.
And they have that stuff somewhere. I just, I'm not sure, but I mean, there's a lot of shots, and not only a lot of shots, but there's a lot more characters in each shot too.
Mm-hmm. And then like the whole last third of the film's all visual effects.
Yeah.
Like when they're in the Hall of Prophecies or whatever, or the Room of Prophecies, like that's all shot on a green screen. Those bulbs or those globes look so 3D.
The globes and everything. Yeah.
Even the whole room. But I mean, you have to make a room that goes on forever in all different directions.
You're gonna have to do something.
How else are you gonna do that? You're not gonna build that room. You know what I mean? Especially because you have to move cameras and things go in certain places and stuff.
And they did things like had very limited lighting to help with that and stuff like that. But you know what? One thing, I know we're jumping around a little bit, one thing that still I absolutely love, and I'm just maybe a sucker for it, but the particle simulations with the smoke when they're moving around and stuff, and vapor form, whatever. Oh, it looks so good. It looks so beautiful. I'm like, yes, it looks so good. I love that stuff. And that's just, I think that's Houdini, because that's the kind of industry standard application for that, but it could have been any other 3D application as well. But it looks so good.
That whole sequence was a beautiful sequence because you have the lighting coming from the top. So you have like the cool lighting and all that stuff, and then you have the black and white, good and evil fighting each other, and it was just cool to see the visuals. So super easy when you have that color, black and white on the screen, so you know who's fighting who. You know what I mean? Like it really
from identification. I thought you were going to say really easy to do the effects. He's talking about visually to identify.
Visually,
I was like, really? Okay.
One of my favorite scenes though is when Harry Potter's fighting with Sirius Black, and Sirius Black calls him James. That's his dad's name, because he was like, "Good one, James." Like, you know what I mean? Like,
oh really?
Yeah, because he was like going back to like the old times with his dad and stuff like that.
Oh really? Did they ever address that, or is that just a little side thing?
I don't know.
That...
I don't know if they. I mean, he dies right after. I don't know if they can adjust.
Sorry, bummer. You
can hit F in the chat. I've always enjoyed that. I always enjoyed that little sequence. But What you think of that effect they had in the middle of the archway? It was like a wave effect.
It was a wave. I actually really like that effect. Like admittedly, I'm a sucker for portals and like that rippling. Like I think the first time I saw that was the original Diablo back in like 1996 or something. And then portals always have this kind of rippling, and I thought it looked really cool on that. But it's an effect you see a lot, but I looked at it, I'm like, portal.
They did such a good job though.
Yeah.
I mean, this is probably where all the money went, because this stuff looks the best. Like in the whole film.
You know that they did, obviously for a big budget production like this, they're going to do storyboards, and they're going to say, it's like if you guys want to see a great making of that's like an hour long, it's for Revenge of the Jedi, that Mustafar sequence, they break down only like a minute of on-screen fighting, and they talk about how many people, all the departments, all the hours, and they give you a good idea of the entire visual effects and special effects pipeline. And but they sit down and storyboard this stuff, and they like they did in Star Wars, they're going to say, okay, this is such a crazy intense sequence. We need to get working on this right away. We need to budget the proper time for this. But the last half an hour of that film, they probably budgeted for it, planned for it, but it's just absolute dynamite. It's so good. I can't say anything bad about it. And the lighting is just amazing on it. So do you want to talk about the end a little bit?
Dude, talk about a fight scene we've been waiting for. I think this is the best magical fight scene on film.
There's a lot of films out there, Nicholas.
I mean, I love putting down The Witcher as much as I do, but like that magic scene was crap compared to this. Like this was just so cool. Like the breathing of the fire, and then like the ball of water, and the sound effects with everything was just like so perfect. Oh my! You
know what it reminded me of a little bit, and this is my nerdy thing I always go back to, is Willow when the two sorceresses are duking it out. There's fire and there's air and there's like it kind of reminded me of that. But you know what's cool? It's kind of like that Obi-Wan Darth Vader moment where you get the two older villains. You still have Luke Skywalker. It's gonna happen eventually, but you get the two iconic, like kind of mentor and villain figure kind of going at it, and that's always exciting because you always wonder, are you going to get that? And it really delivered. And the wands when they're hitting and this like molten stuff is falling off, and the they're not easy. I mean, the camera's moving. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Really, really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Now, Nick has a things where he likes to rip apart CG snakes. Did you like this CG snake that Voldemort cast?
I liked it. I just liked it because it was fire. Everything was great. Everything was great in this sequence. I have nothing bad to say because you have the whole thing where he's protecting Harry. And, even when he's like shooting off the lightning off to the side, it was just, oh my gosh, it was so cool. It's my favorite fighting sequence.
And I forgot about the whole Harry Potter exorcist scene at the end. I forgot about that.
They beat us to the deepfakes. When they put his face on Harry's face and stuff like that.
But yeah, I thought that was a cool concept. I mean, it's kind of cheesy when you have like, oh, does this person have something worth fighting for? And you see this whole montage of editing, and then it goes backwards and you come back.
The best is the shots when Voldemort's like, you know what I mean? That's like the best because can you imagine like Ralph Fiennes going like,
I didn't think about that. Oh man.
He's just in a dark room making faces like.
Ralph Fiennes is awesome though, man.
You know what I mean though? Then all of a sudden he's like, oh. It's like it's so weird. It's so funny.
And then finally at premiere day, he's like, oh, thank God, I actually don't look as dumb as I felt. Yeah. It was really cool, but at the same time, probably absolutely tediously boring to film. Like you were saying, it's just like, all right, you're just doing all this weird stuff, and you're just trusting that it's going to look good later on, and that's hard, especially for the actor and actress or whoever it is to get in that part and in that role in that moment. That's really hard to do. So that they pulled it off as well as they did, really, really cool stuff.
I think the stuff that didn't work out has to do with like how it doesn't look real to us. You know what I mean? Like it's like where it takes us out of the movie kind of thing. I don't think it's like bad visual effects. I think it's more of just like it doesn't connect with us in our psyche. In our psyche.
I mean, if you look at the details that they put into all those creatures, even if they don't look absolutely 100% realistic, one, we don't know what they're going to look like in real life anyway. Can you think of better examples in other movies? Maybe, like similar things. Yeah. But they have them moving in very dynamic ways that you have to go about it that way. Could they maybe frame the shots and selectively chosen their camera moves so they could got away with more special effects or less revealing ones? Maybe. But again, kind of like Dobby in that Harry Potter where he had the light. They never cut themselves breaks. They're giving themselves challenges, which you have to commend for sure. All right, guys. So hopefully you've been enjoying this series. We've gone through 5 Harry Potter so far. We're going to be going through the rest. Keep us posted on what you're thinking, favorite effects. If you don't agree with us, anything, go and post it in the comments. Check out asart.space for all the audio and video links, and we'll see you on the next AsArt.